Hey,
What's going on, folks? This is Coma 1980 of Dire Consciousness Films. Also, I'm a member of the JMC Video Game Channel. This is the first of many vlogs where I'm going to be discussing video game culture, upcoming games, and just my overall thoughts on the past, present, and future of gaming. So, before we begin, let me give you a little background on my gaming history. I've been playing video games since I was about 4 years old. I started with a Atari 2600. After that, I had an NES, moved on to a Sega Genesis, onto a Nintendo 64. Then I backtracked, had an SNES, and a PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PS3, Xbox 360, had a Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Advance SP, we had a Game Boy Color, and right now I'm gaming on a 3DS, and I'm still playing on the old 360. Haven't gotten any of the new stuff yet, but I will be in the future. So just wanted to let you guys know how old I am, obviously, and let's just talk about how far my gaming history has gone by. So that gives you an idea of how old I am. Been around the block a few times. I've been played hundreds, if not thousands, of video games, and it's my favorite hobby next to filming. Um, Honestly, when I want to sit down and relax, I probably prefer playing video games and watching movies, depending on the movie and depending on the game. But in this first video, and please bear with me, I'm a little sick right now, so that's why there's all these edits and stuff. But first topic is Nintendo, and I had some pretty strong views of them lately, especially with the deals that they made with Dema, if I'm not mistaken. Now they're going mobile, and off the bat, I just want to say I don't have a problem at all with Nintendo going into a new direction. You know, mobile games. There's a market for it. I mean, you have to understand that it's a business, and they're out to make money just like everybody else. And my opinion, Nintendo's out to make money first and then entertain second. And I'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, again, I didn't have a problem with that. I thought it was, to be honest with you, I thought it was a little late for them to do that. I don't really know why they were hesitant, but they seem to have shown hesitation since the beginning. And so it is what it is for me. I don't play mobile games, but I rarely do. Once in a while, I'll find a mobile game. Actually, I'm looking at my phone right now, and there's this mobile game that I play on here once in a while called Plague Inc. I'm not going to get into it, but it's a really cool mobile game. But honestly, I do not like playing on my phone. I don't like the touch screen. I like I like how the 3DS is set up and how the Wii U's controller is set up. If you're gonna have touch, I still need actual buttons. I still need analogs, and so that's my opinion really on mobile gaming. It's okay. It's not for me, and I don't really care if they're involved in that or not. I mean, more power to them. Whatever. My issue is how they bent over basically for the investors, for the shareholders, actually. I have a big problem with that, considering how they do not listen at all, it seems like. And if I'm mistaken, please comment below. But I don't see any moment where Nintendo listens to their fans and does anything that the fans want. They're more of a we know better than you guys kind of company, and we know what we're doing. And to be honest, I am okay with that. I actually held Nintendo in high esteem above Microsoft and above Sony because they did their own thing. And like any artist will tell you, any real artist will tell you, there's a difference between the artist and the audience. And with the exceptions of certain things, once the audience is telling the artist what to do, they're no longer the audience anymore. So I do believe in that philosophy to a degree, depending on the project, of course. But in my opinion, I feel that they kind of sold out in a way because they don't listen to the fans. You know, I've been very vocal on their little uh, surveys that they make you do on Nintendo Club or Club Nintendo, which is gone now, and just online. And whenever I can send a message or participate in the exchange of information, the eShop is crap. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people think it's great. There's a lot of stuff on there, and there is a part of it that it has a decent amount of content. There is some, but it's not enough. It's not enough. When you have a library as extensive as Nintendo has, when you have such a wealth of games that people are thirsting for, another visitor. I think it's a little silly that the eShop wasn't really like blown up and expanded on. I purchased my 3DS thinking that there were going to be a lot more games on there, and it's my fault. I'm going to own up to this. Usually, I do my research really well. I don't mess around. I see what they have to offer. I see what the consoles have to offer. I see now that we have this big online presence, and they're Xbox 360 with their arcade. The PS3 had their version of arcade. I forget their marketplace. I don't know what it's called. And I would really like look them up online and see, what do they have available? What console games are available? What downloadable games are available? And then I would make my purchases based on that. And I've been doing that since, I want to say, since the PS2. Because when I had a Nintendo 64 and when I had a PlayStation 1, I made a lot of bad purchases. And at the time, I was younger and I was like, well, volume is okay. It's okay to have a lot of games, Crappy games have their I don't even know what to go. They have their good points sometimes. And but I'm at the age now. I'm married, I have a family. I don't have a lot of extra money to spend on games. I prefer now to, I treat my hobbies as such. They're hobbies. I'm not going to go overboard on my hobbies. I consider film one of my jobs because I have a few jobs. One of my jobs, and so I like to invest in things that have a bigger return for me. That's not to say that I don't like to buy video games. I do. I mean, if people who know me, they'd be like, yeah, really. I mean, my Xbox 360. I've used up the entire 250 gig hard drive. I have like 111, 120 games or so. But I make smart purchases, and that's what the point is. And the eShop to me was, I bought my 3DS. I was excited, opened it up, set it all up. I went straight to the shop, and I spent almost 3 hours maybe looking through everything. And I was kind of disappointed at first for a while. There was a lot of stuff that I liked that I wanted, and you had your Marios, they had the old Castlevanias, but I was flabbergasted that there weren't any SNES games, and I'm like, okay, well maybe they're only it's a 3DS and they're only doing classic handheld games, and okay, now continue looking. All right, there goes some Game Boy Color games. There goes some original Game Boy. Where's the advanced games? Where are the DS games? Then I look online and I start regretting my purchase more and more because, oh, well, we can't do Game Boy Advance games. I'm like, what? Isn't that like 2 generations ago? I mean, I can understand if it was the last thing and they moved on to this, but they already moved on to the DS. It's no longer Game Boy. It's Nintendo DS now. Now it's Nintendo 3DS, but it's part of that DS line. And I thought it was really ridiculous that you couldn't put freaking Game Boy Advance games on the 3DS eShop. It was bullshit, in my opinion. And I didn't think to look ahead of time because what I had in my mind, I remember during the ambassador program when they overpriced it in the beginning, and they gave early adopters 10 games, and some of them were advanced games. So I figured, excuse me, okay, that's going to be part of the list. To be honest with you, I did not pay attention to Nintendo at all during the 360 era, PS3 era. I did not like the Wii. I thought it was very gimmicky. They didn't have any games. I switched. I gave up on Nintendo after the Nintendo 64. For a lot of reasons. Price, variety of games. Did have a lot of classic games. I mean, one of my favorite games on there is Blast Corps. If you don't know that game, look it up online. It's awesome. They had Mario 64, Star Fox, Turok was one that I really loved. But I kept seeing things on the other side like Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, Final Fantasy 7, Metal Gear Solid, Castlevania, Symphony of the Night. And I'm like, man, not even Symphony? You can't put Symphony of the Night on the N64? Like, damn, what the fuck? So I jumped ship and I moved on to the PlayStation and I never looked back. I went to the PlayStation 2 and it was like, oh my god, it was like a playground with all the toys you could ever want. And 360, I went out to a PS3, traded it in for a 360, mainly because I didn't know a lot of people who had a PS3 in my circle of friends. And I never looked back. Nintendo was just what children played to me. Because I felt like they were alienating me as a consumer. I was not married, I didn't have kids, and I wasn't a child. And I was not impressed. I really was not impressed with what they were doing. So when the new generation consoles were coming out, the PS4, Xbox One, my interest was piqued a little bit because I was admiring the 3DS from a distance. I said, in my head, I was thinking, they always did right by the handhelds. There was always a nice, robust line. I always, me and my friends would always joke about the only reason Nintendo's around is because of Pokemon and their handheld consoles. And I got a feeling that's where they made a lot of their money lately. The DS sold like crazy. The Wii did sell a lot of consoles, but it didn't push a lot of software. Let's be honest. Considering how many consoles sold, I don't know the numbers. I don't need to know the numbers. It sucked anyway. But I bought into I wasn't ready to move on to the PS4 or the Xbox One. I like to kind of jump in. If I'm not going to jump in right away, I like to jump in year 3, year 2, at the latest year 4. Mainly because I like it when I purchase a console and there's more games out there than I can handle, because that just means I have options. And I was very intrigued by the Wii U, and for the most part, Wii U had a really good year last year. They had a bunch of games coming out, but now they announced this NX console, and let me get to the point. Really, what it comes down to is they weren't going mobile, and they went mobile. Why? Well, it's obviously why. The investors, the shareholders, pressured them into going mobile. And it's kind of ridiculous to me. I'm kind of offended as a consumer that a video game company that's been around, the company itself's been around for 100 years, but in gaming since the 80s, you're going to let a bunch of investors tell you what to do. And I know that's a big issue for any company that goes public. I'm not naive to that fact. I understand, a lot of innovation kind of dies off in a way once you go public. It's never as exciting before those stocks start selling. And at least that's my opinion. And I guess it wouldn't bother me so much if there was genuine feedback, a genuine conversation between the players and the company. We don't have a say in what Nintendo does with their software. They don't give a fuck if we want a Metroid game. They don't give a fuck if we want our Star Fox games. They don't care. They do whatever they want to do, except when the shareholders start crying. Now, I'm not going to say that it's different with Sony, and I'm not going to say it's different with Microsoft, but if I remember correctly, Microsoft backed off on the DRM deal. It's still there to a degree, but they kind of backed off. I get the impression that they, when all that controversy was starting, that they did kind of listen, and they like, all right, we listened, and they took away a couple features, added some stuff, so whatever. But there was something that happened. Sony, I always felt like Sony really went out of their way to, at least until, I'm not going to have an opinion on the PS4 at all because I really don't know what's going on there. But up to the PS3, I really feel they were a gamer's kind of console. Like, Xbox always felt like the console for the hardcore gamer, And I guess for a while you can say it was, because the controller is even, first person controller. Really, I consider it. It's an incredible controller, and the kinds of games, the kinds of exclusives. And the PS3 is really for the all around gamer. That's what I looked at. I looked at both consoles that way. I looked at the 360 for the more hardcore, for better or worse, and the PS3 is for the all around gamer. Now, I really enjoyed when I got my 360 how many amazing indie games were out there, and I was like, wow, if only Nintendo were to do something like this. And my experience now with the new what Nintendo has now is with the 3DS, and there are some great indie games on there. I mean, SteamWorld Dig, Shovel Knight. I don't even have Shovel Knight, man. Gunman Clive, a lot of stuff. Well, not that much stuff, but stuff, and more cards, and but there wasn't enough. It's I just think that they're so protective of their franchises. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I guess maybe that's the frustration of the investors too. They're just pissed off, and they're like, you guys, this ain't working. This is not working. You need to go mobile. And in my opinion, I'm not there in the boardroom. I'm not a shareholder. I'm not anything with Nintendo except the consumer. I'm what makes me and everybody else who owns a Nintendo. We're really what makes the machine go. Investors are just investors. That's what they're. Shareholders, that's all they are. Shareholders. They're just in for profit. They don't give a fuck about the content. They don't give a shit about the quality. They don't, if they had their way, which they do to a degree. Nintendo's kind of proved that it would just be completely fucked up. And I think I lost a lot of respect for Nintendo for bowing down to the shareholders. And I've said that like 6 times already. But one of the real core reasons why I'm so mad about that is that if they would only listen to what the fucking consumers wanted, man. I mean, I'm 34 years old. I'm an old man in gaming, even though it's like the average age of gamers. I don't give a fuck. Kids start playing video games early. Kids weren't even a thought. Kids were still kids when I started playing gaming. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. I'm still sick. Kids weren't even a. Forget it. I'm an old motherfucker, as you can, for the video game world. You got kids I started off when I was playing 4 years old, dude. 4 years old. Atari's 2600. So you can imagine that if there's another kid like me, I'm 30 years older than that motherfucker. But there's a lot of us. There's a lot of us. If the average age of gamers 34 years old, can you imagine how many motherfucking old fucks are playing video games? That's a lot. And why wouldn't you want to cater to that group with tons of dough to get? Why isn't the floodgates open for all their old stuff? The eShop should be the envy of the gaming industry. Fuck Steam. I mean, Steam's great, but that's what they should be saying. Fuck Steam. How about if we put out everything we can from Nintendo all the way through to current? And I have a theory as to why they did this. Why don't I just open the floodgates for the indie guys? Make it so it's so cheap and so easy for them to put it that we would just profit on volume alone. Well, I think in their minds, they don't release a lot of old titles because they produce so few games that they don't want it to interfere with current titles. For instance, I don't know, what's a new fucking... Okay, Mario Kart, right? Mario Kart for the Wii U just came out. I think they're scared that if they were to release all the other versions of Mario Kart on the eShop, that it would hurt their sales on the Wii U. I really believe that. I really believe that that's why they don't do enough for the eShop, And it kind of fucking pisses me off because honestly, yes, I can see a percentage of gamers, cheap gamers. I'm kind of a cheap gamer who will just be like, I just downloaded uh, the DS version. I'm okay. I don't need to get the new one yet. But it's not true. It's not true. You know, I buy and own a lot of indie games, a lot of old school games, but I still get brand new games periodically throughout the year. In fact, I was going to move on to a Wii U because I felt that their setup was kind of worked for me a little bit. Very few first party titles. You had your Mario, this, Metroid, and fucking Kirby, whatever the hell. They're always really well made games, and they sprinkle it out through the year, and then and in between, it this robust array of indie. What I was saying is the way Super Mario 1 felt once you got pretty good at it was just amazing. It was just amazing. It was surreal. You were so tuned in. And I felt so tuned in, even though I was like, this game is too fucking easy. That's the only thing that was killing it. It was just too easy. There was no fucking, the million coin gimmick. And I was like, oh, man, you fucking guys, man. You made this game so you could sell DLC. You fucking assholes. That's my opinion of New Super Mario Bros. 2. They knew that it was a good entry level game for anybody who hadn't played a fucking video game, I guess, or a Mario game. Mainly for the kids, and a great way to sell some DLC because those million coins. If you go about it the way they probably wanted you to, you would get pretty bored of collecting coins because the best way to do it is the coin rush, and you'll get pretty bored. So let's make some more coin rush levels so they can keep playing and get to that million, and then you don't get any reward. It's fucked up. But, they knew, or they know, where the power of video games is. So few games really accomplish that. One of my favorite games, Shadow of the Colossus, it's a fucking classic. And it's very cinematic without using cinema, without using cutscenes very much. It's all in game, and I love that. I fucking love that. And I think the biggest mistake video games do is to try and emulate film. It's useless. You don't need to. The beauty is in the in game. It's in the in game cutscenes. It's when it's happening when you're playing, not fucking cut to the left and press X. Quick time shit. It has its place, but not my cup of tea. Cutscenes. I used to like them when I was a kid. I was like, oh shit. But as I got older, I was like, can I just fucking play the game? Why does it take like half an hour before I can play the fucking game? There is no, and I'm not apologizing shit. There's not one fucking game out there. I don't give a fuck what fucking crap you're gonna pull on me, anybody. There's not one game out there that justifies putting down the fucking controller and sitting through a fucking cutscene. It doesn't add anything that could not be added by actually playing the game. Maybe The Walking Dead was fun because it's kind of like I consider that a different kind of genre, Yeah, I just don't really. I like cutscenes, but I don't like them. I like them when they're done right. And I'm not going to give any examples. I mean, I've been talking a lot of shit so far for a long time. But I just, there's one real reason. There's one other reason why I'm really pissed off at Nintendo. And that's going to be for another video. And it has to do with the 3DS. And it has to do with a phone call that I made. And it has to do with the reaction that I got. And because I really wasn't on board with Nintendo for a while, and I came back to them and I was defending them, and I was really interested in getting a Wii U, even with some of these thoughts that I had until the icing of the cake was the deal with Demo, the mobile thing. That was the icing on the cake to me because I hate it. I hate it when somebody doesn't listen to what I have to say. You don't have to. I hate it when I feel like my opinion doesn't mean anything. That's really what I want to say. I hate it. It's very disrespectful, you know. And I mean, at least hear me out. But they don't do that. They don't do that. They don't do it enough. They do it for their shareholders, but they don't do it for us. They're a business. I understand it. They're out to make money. I understand that too. But you have to, once in a while, give them what they want. I'm not saying, I know I said, audience and artist and shit. I'm not saying I want to dictate what happens with the game. You know better than I what to do with Metroid. But for the love of God, give me a new Metroid, please. And give me some old school games. Open up that eShop. I mean, I guess that's besides the point of what I'm talking about. But it's just I'm just trying to explain some of the failures that they've had, especially recently. And anyway, that's really all I got to say, man. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I just really angry about it. It's frustrating trying to defend gaming. There's still a lot of people who, when I talk about video games with, and they just kind of give you that glassy-eyed look like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go over here, and it's very disrespectful. I mean, there's a lot more people playing games, but there's a lot of people that don't give a shit about video games, and they still look at it like the little, fat kid in the basement kind of thing, It's stupid. It's a stupid way of thinking. That's a whole nother topic, really, though. But Nintendo as a company, I mean, I'm a consumer first before I'm anything else. I mean, I'm a filmmaker, but I'm a consumer. I have to buy things to live. And I have a problem with when my money isn't respected for the power that it has. $1, $1,000 doesn't mean shit. Trust me. The amounts real businesses will make it, they may make, I've seen game companies and I've seen console companies, I'm looking at you, Sony, try to act like, oh, that's not a lot of money. Yeah, my ass. You motherfuckers count every fucking penny. So being a consumer gives you a lot of power, and the fact that right now in the gaming industry as a whole, not just Nintendo, they're trying to make us feel like we're not shit, that we should just keep shelling out for them, and that we're too demanding, and we're not. There's no reason to release a broken game. There's no reason to release overpriced DLC. There's no reason for a lot of things, but back on the Nintendo side, those are my thoughts. I mean, I can talk for hours about this, but I'm gonna wrap this video up. There's a part 2, and it's gonna be much shorter, but it's gonna describe some of the fucked up things that happened to me in that conversation over the phone. I'm gonna try and make it just a 10-minute video, but that's what really caused this. And I am no longer on board with getting a Wii U, and actually the 3DS is my last console for Nintendo, and I'm probably not going to buy anything else for it. And trust me, I have a decent library of stuff, but I'm not putting any more money in their pockets because I don't like being disrespected. And it goes for any other fucking console that I move on. This is a fucking hobby. I have a lot of hobbies. I have no problem dropping video games and moving on to something else. I'll go fucking read comic books. I'll go draw some fucking pictures. I'll do whatever the fuck that makes me happy because that's what's more important. Not Nintendo, not these other video games companies. Thank you for watching. Sorry if it's long-winded. I apologize for my voice. I'm recovering from a pretty bad cold that I had. This is Coma 1980 for Dire Consciousness Films. I'm sorry I keep shaking the fucking camera. I'll fix that in the future. Representing JMC crew. Stay tuned for part 2 of Nintendo. What happened?